Oh my gosh, trying to get everything together this morning. Like, wait, why is this happening?
Enter Jenny White.
It's like, no. Technology, me and technology, I'm just not sure. I'm like it's like my favorite thing because I'm looking on our board and our board is just full of stuff. And I'm like, which button am I pushing?
Well, they've been making some changes here recently also.
Yeah. Don't you hate that when they do that? That bugs me because I'm like, I just get used to one thing and then it'll happen. They'll do it. And then I'll tune in, right, to go live. And I'm like, wait a minute, where did this thing go? Don't do that, you creepy people.
Don't upgrade Jenny White. Don't do that.
Don't upgrade me. Don't put Jenny in a corner and don't upgrade her either. Well, let's bring on Katie right fast and get Katie in here because we were a little late getting on because we were talking about mental health issues, which is another thing we're going to have another podcast on. And hopefully we can do that in October. And by the way, I've got October pretty much buttoned up. I think we have 2 more slots in October. And guess what I included?
What?
Topic list day.
Open mic day.
I did. Well, I love using because everybody cracks up. They're like, it looks like you're saying topless. And I'm like, that's why I do it.
No, that was really good. I liked that episode.
I did too. It really worked out well. I mean, I think there's this fear when you do a podcast of it's like you're walking out over the water on a little thin plank and you're like, am I going to have enough to talk about or am I not? Or people going to tune in or not? And it's, it's, and then you do, and it's like, wow, that's great. I'm so glad we did that. So
I think with your audience and as much as they participate in the comments, you don't have to worry about that. They're so knowledgeable. I learn something every time I come on here.
They really are great. I mean, we are very lucky to have such a great group of people because they are very interactive. And so I'm trying to come down here and retweet, re-X. I don't even know why what you call it anymore because it's on Twitter and it's, I don't know. I don't know what you do with X anymore.
I think we should make up a new word. We were doing that.
Oh, yes.
Day. Yes.
Yes. We've been doing that a lot lately, making up new words.
Yes.
Have you heard anything more on before we start with this one? Have you heard anything more on the Daryl Doherty case?
Nothing specifically. I am watching the documents as they come in. So the signatures have all been submitted, but I don't have any news about how that's turning out. I know that there was some questions because they turned in more of the main forms, which there can be a lot of signatures on one form, and they weren't seeing them all posted within the case. So there's a little discrepancy going on there. I don't have all of the details yet, neither do the petitioners. So that's still going on. The court did sort of side with Charles McCall, who has intervened into this again for viewers.
What?
They did. So for viewers, we're talking about a grand jury petition in Payne County that is seeking an investigation into DHS, ongoing corruption we've had for years, and just all kinds of variances from the law. From DHS, the juvenile deprived court system in our district courts, which is where all those cases go. And Charles McCall was specifically named. He's our former speaker. He's running for governor. And so was Kyle Hilbert, our current speaker of the House. They both intervened, and Charles McCall said, no, this isn't a legitimate organization. They can't file this petition. You should throw the whole thing out. And the court sided and said that we're going to give those folks a couple of days to come back in, but you have to enter as an individual in the petition. So they're really trying to hang people out there individually for retribution is what it feels like, by singling them out and having them refile as themselves. So we, the people, are somehow not allowed to come together in a group that would fight for parents' rights in the face of a corrupt system that takes people's children.
Well,
now you have to stand up as yourself and do that against this huge political, powerful machine.
Well, I really, and I think you guys would agree, they don't like grand jury petitions because they don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to work for the people. They want to work for who they want to work for. And they don't like them. And I think
you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
They just don't. And that in itself should be super telling. Everybody should be going, wait a minute, but isn't that why they're there? Is so that we can get, retributive justice and justice, not,
yes. Get the government
vigilante justice,
exactly.
Retributive justice for what's happened to us, and they don't want that.
No. So that case, we're going to be watching it. And strangely, I mean, these things are kind of tied together that we're talking about today. The last time I was with you, I was here with also with Roberta Lewis, who's from Moms for Liberty. And she was talking about the Ty Burns situation. We were basically talking about these revelations of corruption in our state government, our state agencies, our elected officials. And I was talking about the petition in Payne County about DHS and the courts. And during that, you broke in, and that was the first that I had heard, any of us had heard, that Charlie Kirk had been shot. During our podcast, we assumed that he was alive. And now we find out in the investigation into the Charlie Kirk situation, and lots of people have different theories, but it looks most plausibly that someone who was involved in the LGBT trans community with some serious mental health issues was responsible for this. I mean, beyond an assassination, it's been called a martyrdom. He was really killed for his beliefs and saying them out loud. So it's interesting that it's tragically interesting that exposed that we have this group of folks out here who are incredibly mentally ill. And here in Oklahoma, we had a case that involved the kidnapping of a child by a DHS employee. And none of the media wanted to mention that this person was trans, has identified as both trans and non-binary publicly. These are not my words. These are her words as posted online. So all these outlets, both local and national, reported on this, and they never said that. It's a gigantic part of figuring out how these things happen so that we can prevent them from happening, keep people safe, in particular, kids. Kids are involved here. And this deep dive into this case, thank you very much, Jenny White, for sending it to me again and bringing it up, was mind-boggling for me. We're going to go through it, and you will not believe how complicit our court system was in allowing this person, for whatever reason, special treatment through the court for years as kids were at risk. It's mind-boggling. Gracie Colvin just read the newsletter, was so angry that almost caused an anxiety. Yes. So Gracie, this one was tough. I just kept digging, and literally within a couple of hours of research, it's all there. I even know that the media went as far as to see this because they went and reported on her previous criminal record, which we'll go through. And that record was under her female name. They connected those things. So I'm going to add this article up to the stage here so everyone can see.
Well, let me just say something really fast.
Yes.
So originally I saw an article in the Oklahoman, and you're going to talk about this, but I'm just kind of laying the groundwork.
Thank you.
Where a couple was suing civilly in a civil court because their baby was kidnapped by a DHS worker. And so I immediately sent it to Katie, and I said, because this was my perspective on it, because how many times did it say that that the Lockman baby was not kidnapped?
Yeah.
That, oh gosh, there's another one out there that was kidnapped. And I can't.
It is. Taken unlawfully is the same as kidnapping.
Yes.
Going outside the law to take someone else's child is the definition of kidnapping.
But it is. And I don't like the fact that we don't want to we keep this cover up with, well, we don't want to talk about them being transgender. We don't want to talk about them being a kidnapper. But that's not helping anybody ever, period. So my thought was, look, now DHS has been sued in a court civilly because they have had a DHS worker unlawfully remove a child from a couple, kidnapped it. And so now tell me how the Lockmans can't get their baby back.
Yeah, well, that's exactly how I start this article. I talk about how the Child Welfare Agency and the courts in the state are under scrutiny, well-deserved scrutiny. Again, another scandal involving those two entities and how they are failing to protect kids. And I talk about and link to how Lincoln Lockman, just like that, was unlawfully taken from his parents when they withheld critical information from the court, given to two men. One had a previous criminal history, which we'll see in this case as well, that they did not do their research. They did not do their vetting. And once again, in this case, DHS hired someone who not only had an arrest out there, had a conviction, had history within Oklahoma courts of trying to steal children. And they put their hands over their eyes and said, let's help her. She couldn't be doing anything wrong. This is really unbelievable. Okay, so let me get into this. So as you said, in January, a DHS child abuse hotline worker who was named Xander Daniel Faison, 34 years old now. If that is not a hint that they're talking about a woman who has both a male first and middle name, it's shameful that any journalist would not look into that. She actually used fake documents that she obtained through the DHS system and information from the DHS system. She created fake documents that looked like an emergency order signed by a judge. And she went to this mother's house and said, I need to take this child. This child's coming into state custody. So think about it. You have a mom who's already been DHS involved. There's something going on there. This is low-hanging fruit. She fakes these documents. And the mother agrees only because she said that the baby would be going straight to the mother's cousin's house or someone in the family's cousin's house, a relative who was already approved as a foster family. So I just have to pick up this baby and take this baby from point A to point B. Well, she didn't. She took the baby home, and we know now that she planned to fake an adoption of this child. This is a 1.5-year-old little girl, okay? So as soon as this happened, the father, whose last name is Pierce, immediately attempted to intervene, okay? And in response to his attempts to intervene on the day after the kidnapping, Faison, the perpetrator, was granted an order of protection against the father. He had to stay away from his own child and his child's kidnapper. She used false guardianship.
You can't be serious.
No, when we get into this, it gets triple worse. Just wait. The judge's name, a special judge from Oklahoma County District Court named Sarah Murphy Bondurant, granted that order in favor of Faison, who was the plaintiff, saying, I have these guardianship papers, fake, completely fake. The court didn't vet them. And this man is dangerous, this father, and you have to keep him away from me and this child. They granted it. They didn't check anything. There was some out-of-state judge signature on it. They checked nothing, and they put that order into place. Well, this father apparently didn't stop. Good for him.
Yeah, no kidding.
Good for him. This is a man I want to meet. Faison had the child for 3 days. No one is talking about what abuse that child may have endured during those 3 days. We act like one article said that they went to the park or the zoo or something. They made it sound like it was a vacation for the child.
Of course.
The child was kidnapped. And she got nervous because this dad kept pressing, and she took the child to a relative's home. I'm assuming it's the foster home. I cannot verify that. So because the father pushed, she brought the child back. Nevertheless, She was arrested. You can click here. Fox OKC had the body cam video. You can see that she's still denying it as they're putting her in a police car. And very recently, so this all happened at the beginning of the year, very recently on these 3 case numbers that you can click to, she was charged on 12 separate charges, is facing a minimum of 25 years, the way they lay the sentences out and overlap or don't overlap them. And the charges included kidnapping, forgery, impersonating a public officer. During her interviews with law enforcement, she blamed the kidnapping on her alternate personality, Phoenix.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Yes. So we have someone with serious mental illness here that was working for DHS. And hey, that could happen.
Goodness.
We could, any of us could hire somebody that had hidden mental illness that we didn't know, but that's not the case. So the father, like you said, Mr. Pierce, on August 26th, filed a civil suit against both Faison, the perpetrator, and DHS for violating his constitutional statutory rights, false imprisonment, fraud, all kinds of things. There are lots of charges in this civil suit. So God help him. I hope you prevail, Mr. Pierce. But here's the part that the media covered this much of it, right? Very few of them.
Oh, hang on. OK Native says the charges were concurrent. It's 10 years total, as far as I know.
And I thought that too. That's a really good comment because I had to think through this. And it's actually the reason why I linked all 3 cases. I don't know why. Whoever you are, Oklahoma Native, I can't tell you why this is in 3 different cases within OSCN, the Oklahoma Courts Network. It's in 3 different cases, and there's actually convictions in 3 different cases. So in the interest of time, I did not get every document I could get my hands on. But if you click in, one of them would lead you to believe it's 10 years, but another one has the biggest of the charges, and one is 25 years. So we go.
Well, and this OK Native says this too. I have proof that Faison was following pages related to CSAM on Instagram.
Okay, tell me about CSAM.
Yeah, what is CSAM?
Yeah, okay, Native. If you could let us know that, I'd really appreciate it. I'd love to know where you're going with that.
CSAM.
That's where we need to get the call-in show working, Jenny.
I know. Well, we're counting on you, Michael.
I know. I'm having technical issues.
And OK Native, go check that out on OSCN. I love when people double check me because that was confusing, and I'd love your opinion about that, about the sentencing.
And Julia said, Sybil, anyone we used to know about multiple personalities, and that was mental illness. But I do, OK Native, I do want to know what CSAM is.
Yes.
Please.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about who this person, Xander Faison, was. So the woman known as Xander Daniel Faison, sometimes she would change the middle initial to S. And sometimes she would just go by Alex Faison. We've talked about this before on your show. When people change their gender, child sexual, okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
Sexual abuse material. Thank you. So we've talked about how.
Oh, she reported or he reported it to the authorities.
Excellent.
Oh, wow. So there's somebody who knows about this case. That's awesome. Cool. Go.
Thank you. And that's what I said earlier. No one's talking about potential abuse that could have happened. That's a major development. Anything you have, I would love if you would send that along. If you go to v1sut.com, my email is at the bottom of every single article, including this one. Send me an email. Let me know what you know. We will track that down because the family of this child deserves to know what kind of predator had their child for 3 days. Okay, so this woman, Xander Daniel Faison, who has some aliases and also has a previous female name, a lot of the court records don't connect this as one person. As a matter of fact, if you look in AI, it specifically tells you, no, this person and that person are not the same person. So you have to be really careful in vetting people these days because they can track under different names. It used to be pretty tight where you went into someone's court records and there's a little button in OSCN where it says, you click on their name and it will list all the known aliases for that person. They just don't keep that up anymore. They don't do it. They don't include if there was a name change. So Faison publicly identified as both trans and non-binary. So if you look here on the left, this is Xander Faison on a YouTube channel where he says, I am a 29-year-old trans dude who wants to share my life and all the things I go through, mental health awareness, LGBTQ quirks, and fun stuff, work, school, family, friends.
Oh, no. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Let me just say something really quickly. Again, I'm not here to demonize people with different lifestyles. That's not what I'm about, and it's not what any of us are about. But there are certain places these people cannot work.
Yeah. Agreed.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So and I don't care how much self-control you have. It is simply not healthy for people who have different sexual notions to be around children who are not people that can appropriately developmentally describe what might be happening to them in their care.
And I would actually put it a little differently. When we stopped calling gender dysphoria a mental health condition, we started allowing people with serious mental health issues to then qualify for all kinds of positions where they would have access to other people's children and control over other people's children. In this case, control over information that allowed someone to steal a child. So if we could keep it in terms of what really is mental illness, everything would be working much better and people would be safer. OK Native, yes, it's v1sut.com. Thank you. And if you look over here on the right, Xander Faison on X says FTM, non-binary, love is love. So at some point in that confusion, went from a biological woman, identifying as a man, and then non-binary. And we see a little bit later that change keeps going. So Faison in 2020, officially changed her name. She went from Maryland and she hopped to Georgia, and then she went back to Maryland, and then she relocated to the Oklahoma City metro area in late 2020. And just prior to coming to Oklahoma, just prior, in the spring of 2020, she legally changed her name from Aisha Wilson Faison to Xander Daniel Faison. And here is the actual document showing her name change. So she went from Aisha to Xander Daniel. And you can click on that and go see it for yourself. Now, under Xander, this is where we get into court records. Xander had previous court history in both Maryland and Georgia and appears to have come to Oklahoma in 2020 pending an open trial case, a civil case where they had a pending trial against her. She was the defendant in that case, and the case remains open. So I don't know if the name change in the move, they just don't know where she is. I don't know what's going on there, but that case is open, and it looks like maybe she sort of bolted out of Maryland and found a new place because something else was going on legally. And then in August of 2024, just months before the kidnapping, online here, you can see that she's publicly expressing perhaps regret about her time spent impersonating a male. And the quote here is, "I missed myself. I'm glad she's coming back."
Oof.
So you can see that the mental illness, when people are ready, and if you look at this woman's history, she's had a long history of mental illness before this gender ideology was added to the mix. And you can see a mentally ill person perhaps searching for a solution in this gender ideology, and it's just not working and it's not fitting, and she's flowing. So when they say gender is fluid, it's really it seems like a clue about the mental illness and the track it's taking.
Yeah.
So previously also, she lived in Macon, Georgia, it appears, and filed bankruptcy. She was young. This was filed when she was 23 years old. And she filed Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And on that filing, she reports having a 3-month-old daughter as a dependent. So you can see here that at some point, there's no other information. In most states, you can't get into child welfare records.
Right.
You can't get into adoption records. You can't get into anything like that. But I couldn't find anything related to who this child was. Was this her biological daughter back then? And it shows that she was trying to get child support, is what she declared in the bankruptcy. So apparently she was not with the father of the child. We don't know, but she did claim to have a daughter. We don't know where that child is at this time. But then also in 2009, when she was 18, there was a federal case. Anything that happens on a military base goes into federal court. She was caught shoplifting from a military PX. And then there was another case where she was convicted of perjury and making false statements to an officer and sentenced to 3 terms of 6 months each for 2009 offenses. The sentencing didn't come until 2013. So there's a lot going on here.
Wow.
In this woman's background.
Yeah. For sure.
This is the part that I can't believe. If you do one search on this person, that you wouldn't have reported on this. She was impersonating a mental health provider online in a whole bunch of places. And she was getting away with it.
Goodness, really?
So not only is DHS not vetting, our mental health provider networks, our licensure and regulation boards are not checking. And I want to walk through this because I found this mind-blowing. How many people since the pandemic have been going online to get help for their mental health? And who are they running into? So this is Xander Faison, and you can take a look at this from her LinkedIn resume, one of her LinkedIn resumes. And she says that she is a mental health therapist for something called Together We Rise. That's an organization that she created herself. Okay. And you can see here, right when she came to Oklahoma City, she worked for 2 months at one childcare organization, and then she worked for 1 month at another childcare organization. What went on at those places that she worked for such a short time, seeking access to kids from the moment she stepped foot in this state? So she claims to be a mental health therapist on that resume, but then there's another conflicting resume, and you can click here for that, where she claims to be working for 2 other organizations as a therapist and a mental health case manager at the same time. So it's very confusing here about what's real. Sometimes on online provider websites, she claims to be a psychologist. Okay, so here's one where she's a psychologist and she's got all the letters after her name. Okay, sometimes she lists herself as a licensed professional counselor, specializing in LGBTQIA plus issues and PTSD and everything else you can think of. So if you look here, this one on the left is a platform called Therapy Den, where you can go to find a mental health provider. And she's taking insurances. She says she's an LGBT affirming provider.
Oh my goodness gracious sakes alive.
Over here on Headway, which is another such platform where you can find a provider. She says her gender is non-binary. She specializes in everything down here: bipolar, depression, family issues. Okay, so there's all kinds of stuff going on here. And deeply concerning, when she came to Oklahoma, where she'd go on to kidnap a child, she's listed on Open Path Collective as specializing in adoption, foster care issues.
Wow.
Yeah. So you start to see this pattern of this person is getting involved where she will have access to children. She's even in some places listed as a doctor of psychiatry. That is a very advanced listing. Yes. And that one is out of Baltimore. She's listed as a doctor of psychiatry. And on one of these platforms, let me see, I don't want to make you seasick, but Vital.
Oh my gosh, she literally has people giving her reviews
as a doctor of psychiatry.
Oh my word.
And the patients even knew that this was so off that they checked her licensing. And they said, this isn't the person. This is a scam. This one says right here, complete scam. terrible, awful interaction. It seems like they may not actually be licensed. Their license numbers are fake. You get down here, it said,
how do the platforms just allow people to have those false documents on there, just self-credential themselves? How do they allow that?
That is the question that I started to chase down. I could not believe that this was out there. And this person on this site, that profile as a provider is still up. It's still up. So we'll get into a little of that. I'll tell you how I chased down to find out if her credentials ever existed or if what she was doing and how she was getting away with it. So this one says, I scheduled an autism assessment, which that's just so scary. And that she must have been going by he whenever she did this particular fake session with a real patient. He spent the next 3 hours berating me, told me I was using my autism as a crutch, and called me manipulative and other cruel things.
Wow.
Oh my word. An Oklahoma native is saying others in the fields were trying to take her down. I bet they were, because we'll go on here to show how this wasn't just harming patients. There were other providers. So Faison is a complete fake. Neither the Oklahoma Board of Examiners of Psychologists or the Maryland Department of Health State Board of Examiners of Psychologists shows her ever being licensed in either state. And then in fact, I checked the Oklahoma State Board of Behavioral Health licensure and the Maryland State Board of Professional Counselors and Therapists. And Faison has never held any legitimate mental health credentials ever. Yet, she was or is still listed as a licensed provider on all of these platforms: Therapy Den, Headway, Open Path Collective, CareDash, WebMD, ProviderWire, Mint Leaf Therapy, Health Soul, and Vitals.
They should all be held accountable. They should all they should all have damages and from lawsuits or whatever.
Seriously, because if you're gonna have a platform and you're not gonna vet people on your platform, no.
Yeah, this is really dangerous stuff. And why? I mean, I have heard of mental health providers being disciplined. I've heard of all kinds of things. Why was this person sort of given such a pass on proof of their credentials? What's happening here? So patients are outing this person and nothing's happening. Wow. You notice that there's no response. No one's getting back to them. So they were correct. They were absolutely correct. So based on her ProviderWire, that's one of the platforms listing, she was using the Maryland issued license number of a licensed professional counselor named Elizabeth L. Faison, right? And she was impersonating a clinical child and adolescent psychologist on this particular site with this other woman's credentials. Now, this other woman has nothing to do with it. She actually works within education. She works within a school district, not in our state. The names don't match up, and neither do the credentials attached to the names. But no one in mental health treatment regulation noticed, even with the complaints. And you can see it here. So here's
what are these people doing then? I mean, what are these people doing then? I mean, if they're not policing their own people, what are they doing?
Every state has licensure boards. There are national licensure boards. There's all this regulation that all this money goes into in mental health. And it is obvious that they can be completely duped, that there are no real checks going on here. So yes, this is her on ProviderWire saying she's a child and adolescent psychologist. And it gives the licensure number here, that licensure number. And if you'll notice, she's in Oklahoma City by this point. So this continued from Baltimore to Oklahoma. And there's a couple of different addresses here and phone numbers. And then it has an apartment number that this Together We Rise organization that she created herself. And for what it's worth, she saved the name in the Secretary of State's website, like she was going to really form this. That's just saving the name, never registered that organization. That's not even an organization that's legal to do business here. And if you look over here in Maryland, that same license number belongs to this woman, Elizabeth Faison. So what's being attached to this actual provider's record? Are there complaints being attached to her record that have to do with this gender confused fake psychologist person running around doing therapy? I'm hoping that Elizabeth Faison sees this.
Well, Sherry Conley's on Rumble and she asks, isn't it illegal to impersonate a doctor?
Yes.
Well, so I guess,
prison.
Yes.
So we just don't follow the law. I got to interrupt and put this in. Jeremy Rhymes says, we're allowing a clown world where children are systematically exploited in front of us, but the rules that allow predation were made up by men. We are therefore complicit by sitting in our chairs, so subordinated to political authority that we struggle to even feel the appropriate emotion, in part because we have no way to finish that emotion. We're filled with the tension of suffering humans going unnoticed, our hands bound by ink on paper while children are raped. Is this not untenable? I mean, and he says that the systems are not flawed. They're designed to allow predation. Once you read the history of the AMA, you'll start to see continuity of predation, and it will seem more matter of course when you learn things like that, and it will continue until we make new parallel agreements to replace the predation systems. The elites are in charge until they're not.
Jeremy, put on your seatbelt because I'm about to prove you right in 10 ways, and it involves the Oklahoma County District Court.
And see, Robert says the same thing that I believe. We should treat child welfare, or we do treat it as a for-profit industry. And it's a multi-billion-dollar a year income generator in the U.S. It should be a nonprofit, volunteer only, independent of the government. But the problem is, at this point in time, people are degenerate. I mean, there are so many people out in the world now that are just degenerate. I don't know how, I honestly don't know how anything works anymore. It's so nerve-wracking. I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. And the other thing that I would layer onto this is that we're seeing the system give preferential treatment and not vet certain protected groups within this crazy ideology.
That's what Lisa just said. Additionally, we're asked to be compassionate towards the predators and the evil that supports them. Oh, well, we can't fit, that poor woman, she's got mental health problems. Yes, get her out of the system and get her treated.
Correct. That is not at all what happened. And I just want to point out before I move on that in AI, as I was saying, Xander Faison, it says, is a credentialed mental health provider, and it assures, if you do a query, I did it in 2 different AI platforms, she has no connection to the Xander Faison arrested in Oklahoma City for kidnapping. The truth is, she's a fake provider, and she is the same person who kidnapped a child in Oklahoma City. So we have to be so careful. Journalists who get their information and let AI do their work, you're going to be wrong a lot, and it's dangerous.
Another reason to hate AI. Sorry.
Correct. It's never going to be able to reason like a human with emotions. It's never gonna, and to see patterns, human patterns.
I'm with Gracie.
Yes, there are probably more than one family, as you'll see, that would be much better off if we had done that. So I want to talk about the Oklahoma County Court. So clear your brain because this is going to be tough to absorb. That court's been giving preferential treatment to Faison since 2021, since right after she came to Oklahoma, often ruling against parents. And I want to show you that. So this woman comes to Oklahoma immediately, as we said on her resume, worked at 2 different childcare organizations. And we see in court records a very dangerous pattern of Faison and protective orders. Over a 4-year stretch, the Oklahoma County District Court consistently granted Faison's request for emergency protection from parents and denied parental requests for those same orders to protect their children from Faison. It was 100% batting average in the wrong direction with every single court decision on this. And I'm going to tell you about that. So Special Judge Sarah Murphy Brown has been involved in 3 such cases in her courtroom involving Faison. You need to know a little bit about Judge Bondurant. She pioneered this court-ordered outpatient treatment program called Co-op, right? It's supposed to be the newest and greatest thing happening in criminal justice reform in Oklahoma. What it does is it drops criminal charges and instead provides outside services, outside, which means voluntary services, to quote, and you can link to the article, consumers who are severely mentally ill with a history of non-compliance with outpatient services. So they didn't do it before, but we're going to give them outpatient services instead of charges for criminal acts, and who have frequent touch points with law enforcement. So that is the mindset of this judge. If you rejected outside services before, now we're going to rename it. We're going to repackage it. And the next time you come in my court in total recidivism, we're going to, again, offer you those services and call ourselves reformers for not putting you in jail, where we know people with addiction and mental health are much more likely to embrace services when they are incarcerated. The data is all over it. It doesn't change. So let's move on to Judge Bondurant, okay? This is who she is. This is her resume, if you're interested. This is the legal firm that she was employed by, and she became a special judge, okay? Here's Faison's criminal activities. So walk with me here. September of 2021, Faison is the plaintiff and is listed as Xander Daniel Faison. So is filing for this protective order against someone that's listed as Malkick, but I believe that it's Malik Sheffield. And this was a father with a history of DHS involvement. I've been able to research and find out. So she's filing this protective order against this father. And the petition was assigned to Judge Bondurant, who also has judges working underneath her. And one of her judges, Susan Johnson, granted that order for Faison against this father. So we're boxing out the dad. After 14 days, that same judge under Bondurant had to dismiss the protective order because Faison failed to appear. Okay, so it's kind of fishy. Failed to appear, puts in this protective order that's likely full of bunk. The court gives it to her, and then she doesn't show up again, which she was trying to pull something perhaps, and then it went south. So in March of 2023, Judge Bondurant denied a mother and child, a mother petitioning on behalf of her child. This time, the defendant that she's trying to protect herself and her child from is listed as Xander Aisha Daniel Faison. So this mother had done the research and knew that this was actually Aisha Faison from back in Baltimore. So she goes to the court and said, please protect myself and my child, and is denied by Judge Bondurant. Denied protection from Faison, okay? In 2024, according to the arrest affidavit after the kidnapping, Faison portrayed a homeless Alliance employee and used false guardianship papers in an attempt to kidnap another child. Okay, there's nothing that I can find about that in court stuff, but it was in here in the affidavit. So apparently law enforcement has access to that information. August of 2024, according to News 9, they did an interview with a family where Faison used Facebook in an attempt to lure a displaced father and child into her home, and eventually suggested an open adoption of the child. And the father was like, okay, something's up. This is not someone trying to help me, okay? And then in January of 2025, this is the third time we see protective orders. Faison, who by then is working for DHS, successfully kidnaps a 1-year-old girl and is granted a protective order by the same Judge Bondurant, blocking Pierce, the father, from contact with his child or her kidnapper.
Is she an appointed judge, or is she an elected judge?
So she would be appointed. She is a special judge, so she would be appointed.
So let me guess, Stitt appointed her?
That's a really good question. There's not much out there. I went out on the Oklahoma County site. I looked for her. There was no information about that.
Well, somebody needs to sue the dang judge. I mean, these people that are running our courts today I think they literally hate us. And if you look at some of the things that were said online about Charlie Kirk that were just despicable, attorneys said them.
Which judge is this? This is Judge Sarah Murphy Bondurant. She is a special judge for the Oklahoma County District Court.
Who's she appointed by? OK Native. I mean, if you've got the info, I'm curious.
Appointed, yeah. Let us know. That would be a really good piece of information. So that's where we are. Anytime that this woman submitted something or stood before a judge, they sided with her, whether she was the petitioner or whether she was the perpetrator that parents were trying to protect their children from. And there's a lot of activity that she was seeking another child before she worked for DHS and successfully kidnapped a child for 3 days. Okay.
I just can't. I go back to what Jeremy said. And Sherry echoed it on Rumble. Hands bound by ink and paper. Our laws don't protect us anymore. They protect the bad people. They protect the people who aren't mentally sane. It's crazy.
It is, in this case, extremely dangerous for children. We don't
Judge is complicit. Of course she is, Lee. 100%.
Yes. And now you can see just another glaring example of why we, the people of Oklahoma, have been screaming for a grand jury investigation into DHS and the court system. And over and over and over again, those have been thwarted. There was even one that was successful, should have been granted, and they just never assigned a judge to it. We're in the wild west of law when it comes to what's going on with DHS and our court system. And now, just like we talked about, we already discussed this, the grand jury petition out in Payne County. Instead of supporting it, we saw Daryl Doherty get arrested twice in one day, put on $1 million bond. And you can go back and read that article. Great interview with Daryl and what's going on with him. And two different judges who were both under consideration for recusal, which means they're not supposed to even intervene in Doherty's case while they're being considered for recusal. But they went in and did arrest warrants and had him put in jail. He's out now, and the bond was reduced to $250,000 after they got his kid and gave his kid back to the parent that the child was
afraid of.
Yes, afraid of, and said he couldn't protect himself. So we have problems, and that was a family court case. But a lot of times these family court cases, then if there's abuse involved DHS. And it's all one big, ugly, unlawful mess at this point.
I literally don't even know. We've had a bunch of comments. Do we have time to throw them in here, or do you want to keep going for?
Nope. That's actually the article. That is the.
Oh, good. Well, thanks so much.
Evidence. So let's see what people have to say.
All right. Julia said, I'm sorry, what?
And Katie, Judge Stanley in Lincoln's case also.
Yeah.
Yes, we had, and I give slightly more grace to that court, although I think the courts need to be responsible for asking more questions. But DHS in the Lincoln Lockman case hid a great deal of evidence that showed very positively for the biological parents. They hid that the mother and baby were both clean and no substances at the time of birth. They heard that the mother had already been months in treatment and was doing super well and got all this, everything you would want her to do in her situation. So all of that was hidden. And then anything negative about the two men who were the foster adoptive parents were sort of brushed under the rug as though they didn't even know, no matter how many things came up. Lincoln's still out there. Lincoln is in Wichita, Kansas, with the remaining adoptive parent who failed to protect, and we don't know what else. And DHS will not take responsibility.
Well, and then you have nobody who is an elected official who's willing to step up and do anything about it. I mean, Justin Humphrey has been writing, these petitions, but I'm talking about anybody else. Where's our governor? Where's our AG? They don't care. Yeah. I mean, they simply don't care. I mean, I don't even want to go into STIT right now because I'll just go off on some kind of a wild thing. But 20 years ago, teenagers were cutting themselves. Today, they have the help of counselors and doctors doing it for them, and government at every level encouraging it. And I kind of see that. Hate to sound 1,000 years old, but we need to ask ourselves why there's so much mental illness today. There just wasn't 40 years ago. Is it mental illness or just an acceptable level of evil? I think sorry, but as a Christian, I think that's a question to ask. I mean, this is just seemingly evil. I mean, to hurt little children, who does that? If that person has mental illness, such as multiple personalities, they have no business being around children. With all the mental issues this person has, they never should have been hired. And this is a great point. Lee says the mental illness is directly attributed to the ones who hired her. So any of the problems should go right back into DHS's lap because, oh, sorry that we give you $1 gazillion, but then you can't afford to get people on the phone to check these people out.
I think it's a huge point. And if anyone else, I don't have any magic powers. If anyone else can get on the internet and find out in 30 minutes that this person would be absolutely unhireable for an agency that is supposed to be caring for other people's kids or have any contact with sensitive family information, then there's no excuse. Something needs to change because our agencies say, and our schools too, say, if we do the required fingerprinting and backgrounds, then we're clean. We have no liability. That's got to change.
Yes.
Because if you're a protected class and the courts protect you and the DAs protect you and the judges protect you and you're not prosecuted for these crimes, it will never show up on a background check. That is part of the system that great viewer talked about. We're working for the predators.
Right.
I believe that at this point, they don't want to change that.
Well, no, because if you listen to, and I've heard some of this, and it's scary. And we had, Sheriff, you're still on. Tell me Matt, the name of the attorney. Remember, we had Matt on to talk about ethics issues, and Matt even said, and he said on Facebook on his own page, he talks about, because he's an attorney and he's seen this himself. There is I don't even know what you want to say about it. There is an internal messaging, teaching side of the law profession, basically, where they literally feel badly for these people and want to protect them from everything. So part of the legal system that these people get into is about how do you protect this protected class, because they're all about the protected class. And that's what they message, in law school and in these law groups and things like that. So this is what these people believe. And then Jeremy said they shut down, and we were talking about mental health facilities. They shut them down partly because humans over time were no longer putting their loved ones in those abusive hellscapes. They were crazy houses of dens of abuses, but then they sent them all out into the world anyway. And it is true that there were people being hired to work in these facilities that were definitely abusing. You saw that in Clockwork Orange. It was amazing what a horrible movie that was, but you saw that. There's got to be a way to institutionalize people protectively, not have them in a place where they can be abused, but they're protectively institutionalized where they can't hurt themselves and others. And just because this woman wasn't running around with a weapon of some kind doesn't mean that she wasn't hurting these children and these families.
Yes, and I will be following up on OK Native's tip about what she was seeking online that had to do with children and sexual abuse.
Lisa said this is a fake credential issue more than a trans issue, in my opinion. And I don't, and I see your perspective. The fact that she wasn't vetted is extremely highly disturbing and should be investigated fully. She is a real danger to society. Lisa says the Woolley family's been going through this for years. And OK Native says, and it's an obsession with sexual orientation. Yeah. And that is what the issue is. I don't know if it's food additives. I don't know if it's in the water. I don't know what is going on, but there is some kind of something.
There's a chemical attack in some way, whatever it may be, whether it's through medical, through all the prescription medication on top of what all the chemicals that are in food and water. You know, it may, heck, Jenny, it may go all the way back to giving these kids massive amounts of all these vaccines as little babies when they don't even need any of that. Their immune system's not even built yet. You know, that those chemicals, those things, they know they go through the blood-brain barrier. They're going to affect these people sooner or later. And my biggest thing about it all is it's only going this way. You know, it's only going up. It's not, you know, it's not going down. We're not seeing less and less of this. We're seeing more of it, and more of it in an intense, you know, actual intense fashion where these people are literally being magnified on all stages.
Well, and it's, to me, it is a real deficit of I don't know if I want to say intellectualism. I don't know. But when you literally have people that are covering up that Charlie Kirk's shooter was living with a man transitioning to a woman, I mean, there are people that are literally covering that up. They won't say that in the media, even though Kash Patel said it. I mean, it's been out there. Apparently, the guy is being extremely helpful because he had no idea, according to what they've said, that Tyler was doing any of this stuff. But that's not the point. This just is, we've demonized the word normal. We can't use the word normal anymore because if you do, you're being a hater of some kind. You're being racist.
They normalize the word normal. Now everything's just, you have to accept that that's normal.
You have to accept that abnormal is normal is what you have to do, because normal doesn't mean traditional anymore, because traditional is bad and we have to eschew traditional and demonize that. Because we want something that isn't traditional, because why would we want to be traditional? So we need to get it because that's misogynistic and you know, all of these things that they talk about it being. And it can't. I think part of the reason why Charlie was killed is because he was trying to explain what normal is and why traditional values. I mean, you don't see two-parent families with children running around burning things down or trying to, you know, change their sex, or, you know, I mean, there are reasons why traditional methods have been traditionalized. It's because they work in some fashion or they wouldn't have been traditionalized. So, and then you can hear people saying, as I say that, well, it's because it was a male dominated society and men would just beat people into submission. And you can hear them saying these things and they just simply don't even, they magnify the smallest episodes in society and they magnify them and then hone in on them and make those things the issues. We don't want to look at normal. We don't want to look at the round part of the bell-shaped curve. We want to look on either end and just scream about those things and draw attention to those things. We've forgotten about the middle part. Because there aren't people that are, you know, by and large crazy in the normal part. And crazy is what changes things. That's what forces change.
Yeah. With the accelerator of the internet now to make it, sensationalized, no matter what it is. Yeah, I was going to, when you went down that little thing, I was going to say the exact same thing. There's been an attack on the family for a long time. I mean, ultimately, if you had, a traditional nuclear family type of unit, we wouldn't have, in my opinion, all this mental illness, all this, because so I said, yeah, the vaccines, all the chemical attack, but on top of that, you have a completely broken family where a child does not have that unit, that loving unit of a family. So now they're just in the system with these degenerate people that groom these kids and just literally steer them down a path of just complete insanity. Probably, from the time they're little kids going into school, going into whatever government programs, aftercare programs, whatever, it's all a part of the same thing, in my opinion.
So I agree with so much of that you're saying. I actually think we are regrettably a step beyond that, because I think it's been a very strategic and long game over several generations where we've completely abandoned the proven principles of healthy child development, for one. And there's a reason that our state law says child abuse also includes exposing kids to adult sexuality. And now we're fighting to get it out of our elementary school libraries. So we're so far beyond the pale at this point that we got here because the family was attacked for generations. And now we're beyond it because you see, as in the murderer, what looks like the murderer of Charlie Kirk came from a 2-parent faith-filled house that was very stable. So now we're at a point where our kids have been so exposed that they can come from great stock. And I know families who have lost their kids to this transgender ideology and cult and introduced massive mental illness that are amazing 2-parent families and are crushed by this. So it's that big now that we are beyond it.
We used to understand the idea of cultism and brainwashing. And I mean, we did. I mean, we knew that there were cults. We knew, what was the guy in Guyana who, got everybody to drink? Jim Jones. I mean, obviously there have been cults. We can see them. We know what they do. They brainwash the people who are in the cult. And I think we just need to break it down and talk about that. I mean, that is literally what is happening. But I think here's the bottom line issue. And Carmen Greider and I talked about this yesterday, and our interview will be on Friday, but we talked about this yesterday. When you have people who demonize religion and take it away, and I'm not just going to talk about Christianity. I don't even care. Let's just keep it I'm a Jesus gal, but let's just keep it at a faith in God. Okay. When you demonize that and you take that away, we become our own gods. Okay. So that means that it's all good, man. I mean, we just do whatever we want because we're our own God. We're good. That sounds kind of semi-harmless until you think about this one thing. In the world of religion, and I don't care what religion it is, I taught my kids multiple religions, and we've studied mythology so that they could see the difference between these things. In just about every religion I can think about, there is a God, but there is also some kind of evil character. There's also some kind of tension. There's a devil and a God. So there's always good fighting evil. All right. Mm-hmm. So think about what happens when you become your own God and there is no God. Well, evil goes away too. Right? Mm-hmm. Evil goes away.
Yep.
People can't understand then today that if there is a God, there also then has to be an evil twin. There's something on the other side. If you're a Christian, you've got God and you have Lucifer, who is the devil, and they're duking it out. I mean, right now, the devil, according to Christianity, owns the terra firma, And, it's up to us not to succumb to the messages that the devil is laying out for us every day, and to have that faith to turn to Jesus, right? To find our strength in the good, to find our strength in God. Well, once you remove all of that and there is no evil, everybody succumbs to evil because you can't believe there is any of it. There just isn't. So all of this is okay. It's all fine. It's not evil particularly. It's just, a thing.
Yeah. Julia had some really good comments here.
Sorry, I went on a rant there.
No, you're okay. It kind of is exactly what you're talking about, creation versus decreation. And then I didn't want to miss this one because I think it's huge. They plaster young men with pornography to cause depravity. And now we're at the point where it's not just young men. And what we do know about the development of healthy human sexuality is that there must be a protection of innocence, our sexuality. They know that. The people pushing this ideology know that your sexuality is developed through exposures and experiences. And they are exposing these kids to unnatural forms of sexuality before they have even figured out what the biological purpose for sexuality in humans is. It's a huge battle, and it's causing such massive mental illness. We see it all around us. We see it in the Charlie Kirk murder. We see it with what's going on here with whoever this woman thinks she is and endangering people's children.
But I don't know how to get beyond these misguided people who gravitate toward the underdog. And I'm going to say it nicely because I think that's exactly what we have. We have these people like that judge. Put that judge's picture back up. I want everybody to know who that woman is. We have people like this judge who believes in her heart, she believes in her heart that Faison was a marginalized segment of the population that needs protecting. I would guarantee you, if you literally did an interview with her, she would say, hey, we've got to protect these people. Nobody's here to protect these people. These people have a right to be able to be who they are, and they need to express themselves. But here's where we need to go in that conversation. So let me ask you this, Judge Bondurant. So this woman has an ability to be a man. That's perfectly acceptable if she wants to do that. And then, so she also has the ability or desire to harm children, sexually harm children, and that's okay too then.
Well, it's interesting because in the really ugly pushbacks from the left on the Charlie Kirk assassination, you'll hear them talking about how he said, you're not supposed to have empathy and empathy is a bad thing. No, that's not what he said. This is what you're talking about. He's saying if we now have empathy to the extent that we're protecting certain people from the laws that we all agree to abide by, then it becomes dangerous. There's such a thing as dangerous empathy. And that's exactly what I heard him say it many times about how that's deconstructing our society, this dangerous empathy, which is exactly what you're talking about. And, I walked you through her decisions in this case. Every single time, it didn't matter what side this perpetrator was on, defendant or plaintiff or defendant, she ordered for her. That says something huge in this. It says something else. I'm going to go back to just logistics here. How inefficient are our courts that they don't flag that this one person keeps popping up in these protective order cases that involve other people's children, not people in her family, different kids every time. How do we not have something? Are they just rolling through and making orders and have no idea what they're really doing?
Well, it's interesting when you said that. So the powers that be at the legislature, all under the guise of workforce, want to track our children from the time that they emerge from the birth canal until the time that they leave the planet. And they want to track these people the whole time. We want all these databases so that we know all about them ostensibly so we can help them. But they can't create a mother freaking database that's going to protect children, protect families in the court system. Now, let's make that make sense somehow.
Correct. And is no different than how much reporting have I done on the public education system and predators within public education? Almost every time they bounce from district to district to district to district. Now we're finally getting somewhere that we may be getting that they have to report those things and that we're going to have a database. But how many kids' lives were ruined to get here?
Well,
why haven't we been sharing that every minute? And why aren't the unions? Why haven't the unions been screaming for that?
Because they're not for children. They're for, I wanted to put this up because we were at page 6, Oklahoma, for immediate release, press conference and rally called for reform in the Oklahoma court system and DHS on Monday, September 22nd at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Tulsa County Courthouse and Library Plaza, 400 Civic Center, Tulsa, Oklahoma, between the library and courthouse front doors. Contact TFPOA, not sure who that is, TFPOA, at TFPOA2025@gmail.com. And then there's a phone number there. The Movement for Justice, Due Process, and Equal Protections, the focal point. Oh, that's who it is. The focal point of accountability invites the press and the public, and it always cuts it off. You've got a certain number of words that you.
I think yesterday, the public shared that yesterday because this group, page 6, it's doing a great job. Another independent media outlet, and support your independent journalists.
Yes.
This group has come together. The people have had it. And we will see what the Payne County petition comes up. If they're hiding signatures, if they're going to move this forward. We have a lot of power players who have entered that case on the side of thwarting it. Something to think about.
I used to vet women before they became nannies. I did more in an hour with a landline for a single family than our government is doing for entire huge groups of children over months and months with every resource at their fingertips. And I do believe that is
correct.
Yeah. I mean, you can just look at it. So there's so much more at play. This is the end of it. Calling for reform of Oklahoma's entire court system, family, criminal, and probate, as well as DHS, Monday, September 22nd at 10 a.m. at the Tulsa County Courthouse and Library Plaza, 400 Civic Center, Tulsa. Okay. I'll see if I can't get that cut out and we can play that a little bit on a loop because it would be nice. My knee will not allow me to go, but I would hope somebody would go instead. Yes, our society is obsessed with sexual deviancy, which is the opposite of what our creator designed. And they haven't studied it because why would they? In regard to the mental illness today versus the past, I see in the Bible countless instances where societies that reject God and his scriptures, God leaves that society or gives them over to sin. Romans 1:24-27. Biblical is bad. Everything you're describing is to depopulate the world. It's just straight from the pit of hell. We have to call normal a new word now, traditional, because your normal may not be somebody else's normal. And then that's considered hate speech. And that's where we are. I mean, the same people who are screaming for tolerance, you got to be tolerant. You've got to be tolerant. Cannot be tolerant of anything traditional. They can't. A nuclear family is somehow bad because what do they say? It's the crazy. I can't even think about it because it's so crazy. They say the nuclear family is misogynistic and I don't, there's a whole list.
I'm not sure.
Sarah Murphy Bondurant, presiding district judge or judicial panel. Special judges are appointed by district judges, often through a vote among themselves. The same body typically has the power to terminate.
That's right. So you have an elected judge at the top of the district, and then you may have an appointed judge under, like an associate. But then when you get down to the lower judges, they are often appointed by a higher judge in that district court. That's correct. That is
so
correct.
can we not go petition those judges to get rid of this woman?
I think that should be next. I think a couple of things need to happen. I think someone was very correct in saying here, there are new charges against this woman that should be coming for impersonating a mental health provider. And that needs to be done. And then we need to talk about judges and what happens and who's responsible for the work of this particular judge. And this is just one. And this is just one case. What else is going on in that court?
So Jeremy says the nuclear family itself was a psyop. Extended families tended to avoid political loyalty and form their own bonds and systems. They had to douse the clan and tribal systems that competed with them.
Oh, what I was going to say is, if you remember back in the so-called Summer of Love and all the companies were being extorted to give millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
I did a piece about Black Lives Matter, and on their website, one of their first, they had a list of their goals. This was the mantra of the organization. And one of the first ones was the deconstruction of the nuclear family. Yeah. I quote, at least they're honest.
Well, and I think we probably have a lot in common with Jeremy, but I understand what he's saying about, you know, the extended families tended to avoid political loyalty and form their own bonds and systems. I do agree that, like, for example, I don't like the idea of the nuclear family that would put my father or my mom in a home by themselves because they're old and I don't want to deal with them. I despise that. I despise that. But when you live in a society that says that you need to kick your own children out of your home to go to a warehouse to learn because you're too stupid to teach them, then you're also too stupid to take care of your parents. So we have demonized, and I do agree with Jeremy here, we have demonized the idea of extended family because we want, damn it, we want to be out there working and making that money. We don't have time for this. We don't have time. But that's the reason we have family, is for that time, to be there for them. My parents raised me. I stayed with my mom. Well, I went home one night, while she was in the hospital, which I never should have done because OU at HSC allowed her to fall out of the bed and hurt herself after I said, don't let her fall out of the bed. She's a falling risk. So I never left her side, even for a minute, to go home and shower until she passed. But that was my job. I saw that as my job. As a child of this woman whom I loved, my job was to do whatever it took to make her comfortable and be with her until whatever was going to happen was going to happen. Why do we not feel that anymore? I can't tell you. I talked to so many people who are like, well, I put my parents in a home. Oh, okay. They weren't, like, you didn't love them and you couldn't take care of them. I think we have this, we've done it to ourselves too. You know, I don't have time for my kids. I was talking to a woman last night who has taught in a homeschool co-op for years and years and years. And she said, man, lately since COVID, I've got all these parents who don't want their kids in a public school, but they still don't want to engage with them. They just don't want them in a public school. So they drop them off at the co-op and then they go to work. And they don't pay attention to how they're doing their homework, and they don't sit down and talk to them, and they don't do any of this. But they got them out of the public school, but they still don't care enough to educate them. How horrible. How horrible that we are where we are. Sorry, but your children are your responsibility. And just because they steal our money to put it in public education doesn't mean that those kids are still not your responsibility. And when your parents get old, they're your responsibility. Ostensibly because you love them.
So one thing, when you're making me think about the family.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. One thing, when you're making me think about the family, as a journalist, you try to be evidence-based. I'm not going to say anything I can't prove twice, right? And so you're looking at the data, and the data never changed about families and nuclear families, particularly a father in the home. And the data, went up to, things like kids are 9 times more likely to be incarcerated if they don't have a father in the home. Mental illness, definitely off the charts about that. Academic success is much greater when they have a father in the home. But you'll start to notice that for a lot of things, they've stopped collecting the data. You don't see it coming out anymore because
I have noticed that.
So a really interesting data point when it comes to children and sexual predators is that we knew that people who identified outside of heterosexuality made up a disproportionate amount of the identified child sexual abuse. So a few percentage of the people identified as gay or otherwise not heterosexual, when we're going back, 20 to 25 years, the data was kept really closely. It was mental health statistics. Well, those few percent made up about a third of reported child sexual abuse cases. So we know there's a tie between confusion about sexuality and then perpetrating later on. There's a lot of reasons for that. I couldn't speak to that. I'm not a mental health expert, but they stopped keeping that data. I've actually looked for that data. I've looked for data about the family and outcomes and structure of the family. And now there's the industry has been overtaken and they're not allowed to collect it.
1984.
Mm-hmm. So it's tough to be evidence-based in your parenting, in your teaching, in your decision-making, in your court judgments if the evidence is not the truth is not within your lexicon.
Well, and where would that data come from? Normally it would come from the government in some capacity because they would be the ones collecting that. And can we even trust the government in these situations when we know the government literally, like people like Gloria Steinem worked for the CIA, literally at the exact same time that, she's pushing the feminist movement. I mean, and I've proven just how the government lies on a consistent basis in finance and money and all those numbers. I mean, it's ridiculous, but go back to even before that, Katie, with like the black family unit, back in the 40s and 50s, they were the strongest, most Christian family. I mean, you can't deny that. All the data shows that. I mean, in my opinion, they're specifically targeted to turn it into, what happened now, to where you have just a completely fatherless community where they were the strongest family unit in this country.
Yes, a complete cultural shift, a manipulated cultural shift that did not do their youth any favors.
That's why I think they don't want, why they took the book To Kill a Mockingbird, why they don't like To Kill a Mockingbird. It's not because the N word is used. It's because it shows the black family as a solid, a group, a family,
nuclear,
independent. A nuclear family. And they don't want anybody knowing that's what was the black family, was this nuclear family. And I think that's one of the reasons
the education
why they don't
system, Jenny.
Scout was constantly going home and saying, Dad, this is wrong. And this is, absolutely. So let's get some more comments. And the chemical vaccines cause so many men and women to be weak, both in physical strength and character. I think it's just a lot of things. And they do. We talked about that one. A deist would say you have nature and those who live outside of its considerations. And that's not too off, because I was talking about that with my son the other day. God didn't create Adam and Adam or Eve and Eve. He created Adam and Eve because they worked together to procreate, to create a baby. Adam and Adam can't do that, and neither can Eve and Eve. They have to have somebody else give them a baby. Well, that's not the same thing. So, you have to think about those things. Yes, good, strong families that send their kids to public school systems lose their kids to propaganda, but the Bible commands parents to raise their kids, not the government. Yet our government mandates and incentivizes you to send your kids to the government to be raised. Excellent point, Robert. Bingo. Come on, work. Hello. Not just the judge, Speaker McCall and Hilbert using their positions to protect the system. Absolutely, Julia. Empathy is bondage. I do I do think there's something to that statement. I believe we've crossed the point of government solving any problems.
Correct.
Even the nuclear family is insufficient. We can argue that, and I can see your perspective, but I'm not going to ever suggest that the nuclear family isn't a better way to go. So, because it can lead to extended family, but we got to start somewhere. Well, they sold us and now this is, I'm with you on this one, Jeremy, and you will be too, Michael. Well, they sold us an individuated consumer lifestyle because they made more money when each of us pay rent, utilities, furniture, etc.
Oh, yeah.
That's 100%. There's a bigger picture too. Generations of Americans were traumatized without help by wars and economic tumult and racism. This trauma settles in the home, infects offspring to ultimately stop the trauma-induced behaviors. You have to take the pressure off, and the elite will not do that just by asking us politely. There's something to that. Word lives matter. That I completely agree with. Warfare. Maybe that's your next T-shirt. Word lives matter. Warfare destroyed the Black community. Ralph Abernathy, MLK's right-hand man, saw that and supported Reagan in the 1980s. Black communities were growing healthy before the drug war. That's a fact. And when you go look at the CIA, if you go read, what's our book? Jeremy, have you read this book? What's our book, Michael?
What you want, the CIA book? But the Killing of Uncle Sam. The Killing of Uncle Sam. Rodney Howard Brown.
Rodney Howard Brown. Love Rodney Howard Brown, The Killing of Uncle Sam. And then the Operation Gladio, which was kind of an offshoot of that book. Basically, they talked about how the CIA planted drugs in Black neighborhoods to ruin the Black family.
Who was, at that time, Jenny, who was really fighting against the government the most? Those peoples, for rights, they had to squash that whole thing. And that's how they did it. They figured out how to infiltrate those communities, get those people under control, basically control them through drugs and breaking up families and the entire welfare system. But it was because those Black families, no one else was standing up to corruption and all that stuff the way those Black families were.
Yeah. No, I never even thought about it. You're right. That's why they had to do it. That's why they felt like they had to do it.
Yeah.
To get. Well, yeah. And that's just terrible.
And just another caveat to that, in my opinion, but I've looked at this pretty, I wouldn't say like research like PhD, but pretty extensively. The same thing in the music industry. The music industry was completely hijacked because look at what the music did back in the 60s. Yeah. Look in the 60s and 70s. Look at how the entire music and they're against the government, all the protests, all the stuff. They came in and they changed, whoever it was, whether the CIA based or whoever it may be, but the government came in, got a hold of the music industry, and that's a weapon. Music is a literal weapon in today's time, and it's a total weapon for bad, in my opinion.
Oh, look at rap. Mm-hmm. And it's not just rap, but rap is, I loved LL Cool J and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That was this stuff, Megan Thee Stallion, it's just degenerate.
Oh, yeah.
It's degenerate.
And we're so desensitized to it. We were actually at the OU football game, and in all the breaks and the warm-ups and everything, they play as loud as they can the most vile rap. My husband actually looked at me and said, "Are they saying the F-bomb over and over and over again in this stadium of 80,000 people with children?" Yes, we are so desensitized to it.
Well, I heard my son the other day. My son just had, some video on or whatever, and it had a song, and he's just sitting there, and he's not necessarily like really listening to the words. He could have been, but I heard it, and I'm like, do you even know what they're talking about? Do you know what they're saying? I said, do you understand what they're putting into your mind right now, whether you are, actively listening to it or it's just in the background? I said, this is total trash. And I said, I can't believe that you're even, that it's just even on in my house.
Right. Mind poison.
Mind poison. 1952 DSM-1 classified as a sexual deviation under sociopathic personality disorders. 1968 DSM-2 still listed as a mental disorder. 1973 DSM-2 seventh printing removed. Wow, all the way back in 73.
Yes.
Wow.
That's really shocking. Well, but think about it. Kinsey was what, 60s, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Alfred Kinsey was 60s. Mm-hmm. So his major research was between 62 and 68. So then I guess that makes sense, right? Because that's 73. And they're like, hey, even babies can have sexual gratification.
Yeah.
Yes, that's when he did that. And you know, people, there was the big debate about legalizing same-sex marriage. And the argument was always, let people do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people that intellectually agree with that. What you're going to do in your own bedroom is your own thing. The government shouldn't have anything to do with it. I believe that about all parts of my life. I think the government should back out.
Yeah.
But we're now living, like the Lockman case, the consequences of what went with that. We're handing other people's children to two men. And then you layer on what we learned here today about how our courts and DHS are not vetting people, and we're in a really dangerous situation.
Jeremy says he'll check out the book, which is good. We'll have to put it on again at the end. So that even the civil rights movement was co-opted and inverted in state, broken Black communities ended up on state welfare. But that was the idea, is once you get anybody on the government dole, you control them.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. They were teaching communism in colleges and universities in the 70s as well. Well, and Barack Obama said that. I mean, we had that Julia's right, because that's when all of those
radicals.
Yes. That's when Saul Alinsky was being taught all through, and that's how Obama said he developed all of his ideas, was in college during that. I think he went to Columbia, didn't he? Which was the most affected college of all.
Yep.
So now that Kinsey was it really?
Wow. I wouldn't have thought that.
I thought it was in the 60s. Ew, gross, Lisa. Really?
I know. That shocks me. Well, now that we're down this particular story sends you in so many directions. And that's what I've been doing for a couple of days, putting it together. There's all these considerations about mental health. There's considerations about court. There's considerations about state agencies. And should government even be digging in with our kids? Are they inept? Are they vetting anyone? How are they vetting them? But I don't want to lose also, this could have only been an article about a fake mental health provider. And people need to be so careful.
Yeah.
If you have right now, if I had a kid who was suicidal, a teenager, I'm not sure I would turn to the mental health industry ever. Yeah. And that's the very, very sad thing. But just to be incredibly careful, you have to do your own vetting. You cannot trust, like we learned about the medical industry. The mental health industry is cut from the same cloth, apparently.
Well, I think so many of them are. I mean, it's just been, like they say, it's the long march through the institutions, and, the Marxists have done it over. I mean, you got, like I say 100 times a day, I feel like, you got to hand it to these people. I mean, they were single-minded focused, right? And they just took their time and did what they needed to do to, get into all of these institutions.
And what does Jenny White always say when we complain about problems in our government? That each one of us needs to run for a seat, a school board seat, a state house seat, a county commissioner seat, wherever the problems are. The people that will, they have infiltrated. They are your government. Yeah. And if this doesn't show you that, you haven't been paying attention.
When I found this, I have a quick deal on Judge Bondramp. So this was the press release from May of 21 where she's on here, but I thought it was kind of interesting down. So they show all the judges that were nominated, I guess, through this Judicial Nomination Commission.
Interesting.
But down here, they say this right here, that the JNC strongly encourages the public to submit comments on these applicants. Comments can be mailed over here to Tammy Reeves, but also, I mean, here's a telephone number. I mean, maybe we just start calling over to this place and say, hey, this judge here has some serious issues. Look at this.
Great option.
Yeah, that's a great call. Hey, write the URL, put it down and let's pop it up in the comments
for this page.
Okay. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that good. Wow, that's pretty good.
Now it's tough to leave a story like this without an action plan, and Michael just gave us one.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And you can go right in here, click on these members and see, who all's in there, who they were appointed by. It doesn't, since that was that press release, it doesn't list, her deal, but here's a list of the 6 district judges, by state, and then here's a couple members at large, and then just another list of attorneys, 6 more attorneys. But I'm assuming these are the, probably 15, 16, 17 people here that, said, yeah, she's a good pick. Let's put her in there.
Interesting.
Well, I definitely think that's what we need to do is we need to get a group of everybody who's watching. We have a nice audience on today right now. So I would definitely contact the Judicial Nominating Commission and say, hey, you nominated this Judge Bondurant, and this is literally what she did. And then just, if you don't want to, and here's the thing, because I know a lot of what happens is this. We tell people, we'll say, go do this or write something. And then people are like, I don't know what to write. Just do this. Send in the email, say you need to look into Judge Bondurant, and then just put in the URL to Katie's blog, to Katie's Substack.
Oh,
that's all you have to do.
That's all you have to do. Yep.
And so don't think you have to make a big deal out of it. Jeremy says every town should check their charter and use the method outlined therein to disincorporate from the state government. That's a first step. And then self-governance must ensue, of course. But communication tax, such as it is, that's not a problem. So, I mean, and I've heard these things before, and the only problem is it's very hard to make any of that function in the system that we have it. So, I mean...
Well, and another issue with that, Jenny, is a lot of, no matter how far you drill down into, from the feds down to the very smallest, local thing, you're going to find federal money in there, which actually supports whatever that entity or whatever it may be. So until you're able to remove that federal money, you can't go, it's just, They've made it to where it's not possible to, dislocate from that overarching, federal system.
Yep. Correct. So I was wondering why we hadn't heard from Earl's daughter yet. During CV, I sought out counseling for my teens and picked one recommended by my health insurance. The woman via Zoom was trying to trans my kids. Thank God I overheard a session and nipped it in the bud.
Wow.
The mental health treatment industry has mental health issues.
And your city council has run amok. That's absolutely a fact. And it's true, Earl's daughter. All institutions at this point are infected. So if you think there's any way out of it without you getting involved in trying to de-virus it, then, you're... Because sitting in our armchairs and going, somebody do something, isn't really like making a
well, that's what they plan on. They don't have a problem with us just kind of saying something. It's us actually doing something. And that's what we're kind of, as Republicans, conservatives, we kind of get upset and we make a little bit of noise, but we never really follow through like the left does. I mean, the left will go to the end of the earth to, get whatever they want done in one way or another.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely there is. And you know what? I am telling myself, I really don't want to do left and right anymore. I don't want to label people, because at this point, it's more like a spectrum. It's not like it's kind of like I don't know. Not all on the left are, the people who are going to say, yay, thank God somebody got Charlie Kirk. Not all the people on the right, are going, oh, hey, we just want the government to leave us alone. I mean, you've got the far right who, I don't know if you want to call, I don't even know who you call the far right anymore, but the far right,
literally, they're the neocons.
They want government to run everything. I mean, they literally could be fascist. They want government to run everything from religion to everything else. Well, and that's not us either, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that spectrum. I mean, yeah, there is a spectrum, but obviously, Jenny, when I talk about the left, and even when I threw Democrats in there the other day, when you're like, I don't want to label Democrats, but the way I look at it is, at least like on this right side where we are, we're probably farther right than, a lot of people, but at least we point out the bad in our party. Yes. We point out, hey, these are bad guys. Here's an actual uniparty. Here's neocons. These guys are rhinos. We're trying to make an effort in the grassroots side to actually revive the party to how it's supposed to be and take that, entire piece out. On the Democratic side, I haven't met a single Democrat. I'm not going to hammer just Democrats, but I've met a Democrat that doesn't double down on being a Democrat on everything that has to do with them, from Antifa to BLM to, you can go back all the way to like Weather Underground, all of it. It's all. They don't have a problem with all of that stuff. Now, there's probably good Democrats, and I would probably, identify myself more as like a Thomas Jefferson liberal in one way or another. I mean, that's how I see myself. So I don't want to just, say, hey, I got an R by my name, whatever. So I agree there's a spectrum there. But on the Democratic side, look at two of the most unbelievably effective people right now in Trump's administration. Who are they? Who do you think? RFK, Tulsi Gabbard. Who were they?
Oh, fair enough.
Democrats. They were Democrats who walked away from the current, name of the Democratic Party, but they're still who they are. They're still, deep down, they're still those good Democrats, just like good conservatives. I mean, we're all this, in my opinion. Those good Democrats and conservatives are literally the same people, in one way or another. Grassroots conservative people and like old school, real Democrats that care about love and goodness and things like that. They're the same. But, today, we're massively polarized, but I'm still going to call the Democrats names, because anyone that associates with them now, they're associating with, abortion, all the J6 stuff, all that stuff. I mean, if you don't like what we did is we said, hey, there's a lot of really bad parts to the Republican Party. We have to take this thing back. Yeah. Are those old school Democrats actively taking their party back? I don't see evidence of that. I see them always doubling down, with everything they do.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing and something that we need to explore, because here's my bottom line. And this is why I started that Common Ground podcast. Here's the bottom line. We know for a fact that when we're fighting each other, right, the elites win, because that's 100%. The only way they win. That's why the neocons love to stir up these wars. That's why they love to do all of this stuff, because when everybody's in panic mode, they make a killing in the stock market, or they do whatever. I mean, we know how this works. And I just don't want to be a party to that game anymore. I basically want to look at those people and go, you know what? I'm not playing your game. I'm not going to just fight with people because I want to fight with people. And I do think that the more talking we have among the, the parties, instead of just yelling at each, well, you're a bit and you're a bit, that's not doing any good. I think talking is what they don't want. They don't want us talking because somebody might change their opinion or stop fighting, and that would screw up their whole plan.
Well, instead of their plan, divide and conquer, you want unify. You want unify and conquer. You want us as a people to unify and conquer this beast system of the government.
That's right.
So the one thing, I don't know, Michael's got me thinking here, because the left does say very unified, and I have no other words for it, but the right is not a homogenous group. We know that. There are a lot of fakers.
No.
And the last time we were together, we even touched on this. And now and it's funny because during that podcast, what happened in Utah doubled down on our state battle.
Yeah.
For the ownership of our government, just like Michael's talking about. And we talked about the National Governors Association. And I even said that Utah, we are one step behind Utah, which shocks people because they think of Utah as the people are very conservative. They're very faith-based. They're very conservative. But they've had two governors who have been the chair of the National Governors Association in recent years.
And so have we.
As will, Stitt's getting ready to go from vice chair to chair, and Mary Fallon in her lame duck session about killed us with policy from the National Governors Association. And you see the societal issues. When you look up in Utah and you look at what's going on there with a lot of these issues we see in this person who stole the child, there's a queer, it's called a queer militant, like an armed Second Amendment group up in Utah going on, which is a little bit scary.
I saw that.
Just miles in the same community of where this assassin was raised, a male to female, so a boy who now thinks he's a girl, murdered her parents last year in cold blood, a good nuclear Christ-loving family, and this child murdered his own family. So they have a massive problem societally with this particular mind-bending, transgender, gender fluid ideology.
Well, and it's interesting to me, the gay community doesn't like trans. No. They don't like the trans thing either. And you've got so many, you've got gays against groomers now.
Yes.
They're actively coming out and going, look, stop. That's gross. I mean, we have a lifestyle. We're adult. We'll do what we want, but that's gross. I mean, we've got to find common ground with those people too. And that's exactly how conservatives got in this place. We believe to live and let live, and actually acted on it. And that proved to be a mistake. And I kind of tend to agree with you. And Gracie said, this is funny. Are we now the Jefferson Party? We may be. Moving on up to the east. No, not that Jefferson Party. This is a battle against those who have been given over to a reprobate mind. They are an infection in every group, institution, or religion. Discernment is a must these days. That is 100%. People and their actions need to be separated from what their party is morphed into. You get it? Yes, exactly. They live in a bubble of belief. There were multiple strands of propaganda developed for multiple major American demographics, and that's true. I mean, we know that that's true. If you went one way, you got one message, and that created one reality. If you took it the other way, you got another reality. Now adult humans don't even recognize each other as such. They got us on that one. And I do think that that's true, because when I was talking to Christy on our podcast on Monday, we were talking about part of the reason behind what caused the Charlie Kirk backlash we've dehumanized each other. When you can get kids on video games just like plowing away and blood's flying and squirting and people are dying, and you lose the thing in your head that says, yeah, but we don't do that in real life, because now we've blurred that line between what's reality and what really isn't reality. And then when you're on this thing 24 hours a day and think people are talking to you on this, and then you feel like if I just pound this out and do something, I can say whatever I want. You know, that's the other problem that we have, is we are getting so separated from one another that we're not even seeing each other as humans anymore. We're just seeing each other as like punching bags or people that we need to hate because they said blah or they think this. Oh, wait. I wonder if Bondurant was appointed because they knew she would do. That's something to think about, isn't it, Jules? House divided cannot stand. That's right, Gracie Colvin. Michael and I twinning again politically. True.
Hey, and Lisa was a Democrat, was she not?
Yes, Lisa was originally. Okay.
Hey, yes. I grew up in Democrat land.
You did. Holy cow.
I mean, at one time, I was a registered Democrat at one time.
I never was, but Oklahoma Municipal League monthly meeting, 7 mayors across the state. They come up with these policies for our cities, towns, and charters. I know I've been involved with those, and yes, they're bad. It's the one ring. If the conservatives get to that volcano and don't throw it in, we get to do this whole degenerate dance again with new money. The whole shebang.
That's the whole thing.
You're cracking me up today.
Well, think about Tolkien's quote, you know, with the one ring. It's one ring to rule them all, you know, to bring them into darkness. You know, and that's really what it is. You know, you think all these things, all these rings were put out there and you think you have control, but you know, there's one ring, you know, that brings everything together under darkness. And that's really like what we're seeing is this. It is. Technology's consolidating, you know, and removing humanity, and we don't even realize that it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just what I told you about AI in this case, and this particular perpetrator, it's not accurate. Just because it came from AI and they're pulling from different sources doesn't mean they're right.
Wow.
As long as Christians turn to government to solve problems, it will continue to get worse. Government is the kingdom of the world. That's true. The transgender mess is a result of blind acceptance of all the immoral, smaller things. And I tend to agree with that too. It's the frog in the boiling pot thing. Those groups and based LGBT folks are gold. Some are so much more based than the rhinos are in Oklahoma here, sadly. I think life in a simulation is the bigger problem. It's so similar to the Matrix without the tech. It's uncanny. Mm-hmm. Are you hooked into my brain, Jeremy? I've said that so many times. I mean, it's just like being in the Matrix. I feel like I'm being manipulated every damn day I get up. I'm like, who's going to manipulate me today? I just feel like it's true. People in the real, like AER, seem as just characters in the video life. Yeah. I mean, there's some of that too. Jenny, those awful video games only set the stage for what was to come. We're now seeing some of the results. I fear it will get worse. And we got to quit fearing it will get worse and just resign ourselves to doing what we need to do to make it better. And, you know, realizing that, you know, if you're a Christian, then you just go, well, I have control over my spot because that's what God gave me, but I don't have control over the whole thing. That's God's territory. You know, I can just do what I can do. I've always been a registered Republican only because my parents were Democrats.
That seems like something I'd do right there.
That is you. That is you. All the law and order type shows that desensitize us to depravity and then make people think only the government can come to the rescue. I thought that so many times, which is why I don't watch any of that crap. I thought that too. I think you're right, Jules. Lisa was also a member of the Green Army. Jesus God.
Hey.
Oh my gosh.
Lisa, you got to think back. Even
okay.
Republicans, lifelong Republicans give you a hard time, ask them if they voted for Mitt Romney. Because they did.
Oh, yes. Oh, good point.
Not that they had a good choice, but
that's a very good point. Well, we probably need to get off of here because it's 1:55. I mean, our audience is so good. I mean, they always stay so late. It cracks me up. I'm like, y'all people are so cute. Anyway, I thought we had a great show. Well, that's a lie. It was a horrible show, but I think it was good to get it out there. And Katie, honestly, who else in Oklahoma is doing this but you?
Yeah.
Well, when you see journalists who put information in their article that they had to step through a bunch of other information to get there, that was inconvenient truth and not include it, we should all be afraid.
Like the Daily Oklahoman did on that article.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I said, if you trust them at all at this point, it's too much.
100%. Gracie said, I can't even remember the last time I've watched television or even a movie other than monitoring what my son. Yeah. Y'all were fun and informative. Thanks for talking about important things, guys. Well, you're welcome. Thanks for tuning in. You had some great comments. Really like those.
Jeremy, when Jeremy made the Lord of Reference comment, he became my brother.
Oh, nice. There you go, Jeremy. You got a sister all of a sudden. Great to know all the horrible information. Y'all covered it well. Thanks, Jules.
See?
Yeah.
I know.
Lose situation, literally.
Yeah. Hindsight is 2020. They fooled us so many times that, yes, that's just our ability point.
Okay, let me make one point before we get off of here. Native OK says, that was amazing. Thank you all. No, thank you, Native OK. You made some really great points. You were so helpful here. Yeah. So please make sure.
Email me. I want to know what you know. We need to drag it out into the light.
And Earl's daughter says, thank you so much, Katie. I couldn't comment much because this topic hurt. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, and I'm trying desperately to be seeking to be part of the solution. So hopefully I can get off of here and get this done. And then I'll make a little comment about how to write the judicial nominating committee and put it on the blog. And then we can all get it out. And then maybe people will feel like they actually did something about the situation, because I do think they should know about that. And I don't know, I've never heard of that until you came up with it, Michael.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank Katie.
Yeah. So I will be gone Friday. I will be in the hospital, but getting my knee replaced, and I'm going to be so happy about that. So you guys are going to be here for me, but you'll still get to see me.
Hey, why don't we get with Dave and have Dave while Jenny's coming out of anesthesia? Have Dave. We'll put him. We'll get him on with the camera, and then we'll ask Jenny some questions, and we'll really get the truth out of her.
It's like the post-wisdom teeth videos.
I bet she says some pretty wild stuff as she's coming out of anesthesia.
No, that's my daughter that does that. She says some crazy things. Me, I just lie there waiting to get control over myself again because I hate being out of control. I'm like, just go away. Give me some charcoal, for God's sakes. So I don't do much. So I'm sorry. That probably wouldn't be very fun. But you will have you are going to show the interview I did with Carmen Greider the other day, who is out knocking doors and running again in her district. And we talked a little bit about, she didn't have much time, but we talked a little bit about Charlie Kirk, and we had some really good conversations. So be sure to tune in. We didn't get to Sherry's comment about the impact of students not being allowed to recognize the moment of silence for Charlie Kirk yesterday. And that, that is an issue. And I'm kind of trying to figure out how to, I don't know, suss that out myself. Know
the Edmond superintendent, literally right after Ryan made that proclamation about, giving them, a moment of silence at noon, the Edmond superintendent literally set out within minutes, we already give a moment of silence in the mornings. We're better than that.
And all the districts, several others all started popping up with the same comment after. or release, which I don't know why they feel like they need to do that. But the thing that I thought was interesting is if you just think logically, I know we're out of time, wouldn't it be beneficial to have the moment of silence for the victim of a shooting to show that, hey, any of you potential school shooters, you're not going to be a hero. You're going to be the villain.
Yeah.
So which is what so many of the adolescents who are mentally ill that perpetrate those things think they're going to be glorified, sort of martyred or something after, to send the message that no, we're going to support the people hurt by that horrible practice. I don't understand why they wouldn't. To let politics get in the way is really, really disappointing.
Well, they can't control the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's silence. What's the narrative? You're sitting in silence.
Well, their narrative is that we don't like that and we'll do what we want.
Yeah.
And you can't tell us what to do. And that's the narrative.
Yep.
So you give us your money and shut the hell up. Mm-hmm. That is the motto of the Oklahoma Public School. And
it's funny because I don't know this for sure, but I would venture to think that the vast majority of parents in those districts would like for there to be a moment of silence to commemorate Charlie Kirk's life.
Yeah, he wasn't a political figure, really. I mean, he was just a person who went around to, he was a conservative person, but I don't know how you call him a political figure. And he went around to schools talking about all kinds of things.
Yes.
Not
kids to think. How about that? Yes.
Yes.
What a sin, teaching kids to think on a college campus.
Yeah, well, it's like Earl's daughter says, think logically. Now that's a concept.
There you go.
All right. So good to see you guys. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in today. Do not forget, I do have up the website for libertyoklahoma.org. So the conference is ready. Katie is going to speak at the conference. I think it's going to be a really great conference. Go and buy your tickets because they're going to, once the rooms are gone at that price, they're gone and they come with 2 free tickets to the water park. So you probably want to get on there and get that going. And that's just easy to remember, libertyoklahoma.org. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. I will see you again probably in a week, maybe a little more. I'm not sure, but I know Katie will be sitting in for me. Thank you so much, Katie. You're so awesome at this.
You are welcome. God bless. Happy quick healing.
Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. And pray for Dave because he will be the one hearing the whining and possibly screaming and moaning. So pray for Dave.
Hey, I do have a quick PSA because you just said charcoal a minute ago.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
I for whatever reason, I'm very reactive to poison ivy. And I get every single year. I get every single year, and I always, struggle for weeks and months at sometimes to get rid of it. I finally, over the last couple of years, developed a way to get rid of it. If you have any issues with poison ivy, here's what I do. See, I have a little spot on my arm right here.
Yeah.
See, it's black. See, it's black with charcoal. What I figured out for me, and I literally get rid of it in like a week and a half, 10 days, which normally it takes me like a month or longer. But I just, wherever it is, whenever I see it pop up, I just scrub it off, obviously with real soap and water. Then I just dry it off, and then I just pack it with activated charcoal.
Interesting.
And for whatever reason with me, it literally just gets rid of it just, in a pretty short amount of time.
Good to know. Poison ivy loves me.
And I did try cornstarch, but it didn't work as well for me. I found this works the best for me, hands down. And I get rid of it very quickly.
Well, I have to tell Dave that he's mad at me because I'm allergic to every drug ever invented, which is why I'll be crying and screaming because I don't know which one I can actually take that I'm not allergic to. But I can stand in a field of poison ivy and never.
Wow.
Go figure for that. Thank you, Earl's daughter and Lisa. I appreciate that. And this is true, Gracie. He was a thought provoker, and they don't want that. They don't want that. All right, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a great time with Michael and Katie on Friday, and we will see you again soon. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.